Cynthia Anthony, Cynthia Anthony.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mrs. Anthony, when you testified last, we had gone up through the time periods involving July of 2008. Do you recall?
Yes.
Okay. When your granddaughter was found on December 11th of 2008, where were you?
We were at the airport in Los Angeles getting ready to board a plane to come home.
Okay. So you were not present then when the Orange County Sheriff's Office executed a search warrant at your home on that date?
No, ma'am, we were not.
Okay. Between the end of July of 2008 and December 11th, had you noticed whether or not any items had been removed or not at the house? Things that normally would have been there that belonged to Caylee?
From July, July what date?
Any time in July of 2008 through December 11th.
July 3rd, I remember Caylee's teddy bear, Teddy, was missing.
All right. Did Caylee also have a blanket with Winnie the Pooh on it?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall during that time frame noticing that the blanket was missing?
No, prior to that time frame, it was missing.
All right. When did you notice that the blanket was missing?
I hadn't seen it since the end of May. It had been a while since I had seen that blanket.
Now, we've seen some video of you and your husband, as well as your son and your daughter, taken in July of 2008. Is the hairstyle that you had in the videos taken when you visited at the jail the same hairstyle that you had had for a significant period of time?
What's a significant period of time?
6 months to a year.
6 months to a year, yes.
Okay. How about the length of your hair over a period of time, a year or more?
My hair grows very fast, so prior to that, my hair was longer.
How long?
Well, even in the last several years, my hair's been down here ever since Caylee's missing, so my hair grows very fast if I don't cut it. I have to cut it every 3 weeks.
And do you do that regularly?
Yes.
Okay. Do you keep it in the approximate style or length that it is currently?
Until recently, I just started wearing my hair like this again for the summer, but all through the winter months, I had grown it out again.
To how long?
It was probably past my shoulders around Christmas time.
Okay. The length of hair that we see in the July and August of 2008 videos, how long was it at that length?
Probably maybe a year and a half. And prior to that, I remember in 2006, my hair was long again. It was as long as yours is.
Okay. Now, has your hair been processed?
Yes.
In what way?
2001, I started, or actually 2002, I actually started putting hair color on. Prior to that, I just used highlights. I just would take strands of my hair and highlight it. I actually was brunette back in 2004.
Okay. As we move from 2004 through 2008, did you continue to either highlight or dye or otherwise process your hair in some fashion?
Yeah, since 2002, I quit highlighting and I just would color my entire hair.
Okay. If I may have two in evidence, please. Ma'am, can you see two in evidence?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I publish to the jury?
You may.
Do you recognize that to be a photograph of your granddaughter, Caylee?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea when that photograph was taken?
I'm not sure the exact date, but I believe it was early in 2008, like the first couple months of 2008.
Do you see the length of Caylee's hair in that photograph?
Yes.
As we moved into the spring and early summer of 2008, before June 16th, had her hair grown?
Yes, but I would trim it every couple months. I would trim the ends off just to keep it healthy.
Okay. Aside from trimming her hair, would you subject the child's hair to any sort of processing?
Absolutely not.
Do you have knowledge, permission to unpublish?
You may.
Do you have knowledge as to what processing your daughter Casey had done on her hair in 2008 or earlier?
Casey started doing different things after Caylee was born. She never really did much with her hair as far as color treatment or anything, but after Caylee was born, she started cutting it shorter, and once in a while she'd either highlight it, and occasionally she'd dye it back to its natural color and then let it grow back out.
Okay. And what is your daughter Casey's natural hair color?
It's a brown.
If I may have QQ for identification. Ma'am, can you see QQ for identification?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize the individuals in that photograph?
Yes, it's Casey and Caylee.
Okay. Do you know when that photograph was taken, approximately?
I believe in the beginning of 2007.
Why do you think that?
Because Casey, her hair was short then, but it's because of Caylee. Caylee was a little bit chunkier, and you can definitely tell that she was a lot younger. Plus, I remember the clothing that she wore, and that her hair was a lot shorter and curlier, and her hair was a lot curlier when it was shorter when she was younger.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce QQ for identification into evidence.
What says the defense?
No objections.
Be received in evidence. The state's numbered.
314.
Permission to publish the item, Your Honor.
You may publish.
Ma'am, when would Caylee's second birthday have been?
August 9th of 2007.
Permission to unpublish?
You may.
If I may show the witness page 497 of her deposition. Ma'am, if I could direct your attention to lines 1 through 6.
I don't see it.
Object. I don't think there's a question pending, and she hasn't asked. This witness has not expressed any inability to recollect.
Heard it?
Your Honor, the witness has given a statement regarding when the picture was taken, and I would like to ask her about a prior statement she made regarding the same issue.
Overrule at this point.
I don't think the statement is inconsistent.
Well, she hadn't asked her a question yet. She's just showing her something.
All right. Ms. Anthony, do you recall making a prior statement in deposition that the photograph was taken around Caylee's second birthday?
Basis of objection.
It's leading. And this is improper impeachment.
No impeachment yet. Objection overruled. You may continue.
Ma'am, do you recall making a statement that the photograph was taken around Caylee's second birthday?
Yes, I remember making that statement.
Her second birthday being in August of 2007?
Correct, but I don't think that we qualified, months prior or anything.
Okay. What hairstyle has your son Lee had in 2008 and before?
Lee usually keeps his hair short for the most part. We would shave his head, not bald, but shave it down to just, the smallest cutting on the electric trimmers. And occasionally he would let it grow out, and about every 4 to 6 weeks we cut it. But it would never get more than like an inch long.
Okay. Do you know if your son Lee processed his hair in any way?
No, he never has.
Does your mother live in the area?
She lives in Mount Dora.
Okay. Do you have knowledge as to whether or not she was ever in the Sunfire?
I believe she was.
When?
We've had that car a long time, and I know that both Lee and Casey had driven the car up to visit my mom, and I know that they've taken her places when they were up there.
All right. Prior to June of 2008, when was the last time that you recall your mom was in the Sunfire?
I can't recall a specific date, but I know, that she had been in it before. I mean, George and I drove the car as well. So I know a lot of times we would trade out cars. The kids would trade the Sunfire for my 4Runner if they needed a bigger vehicle. So I would drive that car quite a bit, and I know I drove it up to Mount Dora as well.
All right. The question pending is, when was the last time your mother had been in the car prior to June of 2008?
I couldn't say for sure.
What kind of hair does she have?
She's had it different lengths, but never longer than her shoulder in the last 10 years. It's always been shoulder length or a little shorter.
And what color is her hair?
She's got blonde and a little bit of brown and mostly gray and white.
Do you have knowledge as to whether or not any of your brothers have been in the Sunfire?
The only one that could have possibly is my oldest brother, but I don't think he has. But it's possible he could have ridden with either my son or Casey to the store or something.
Okay. And what sort of hairstyle would he have had at that point?
He keeps his hair very short, and his is blonde.
In 2008, were you aware of whether or not there was any duct tape in your home?
I recall black duct tape that we had, and I think we had blue at one point and possibly silver. I'm not sure. I know I'm not one to really use it. I know I did use the black when we had protesters because I used it to wrap the no trespassing signs.
Was any of the duct tape that was in your home kept anywhere other than the garage?
Not that I'm aware of.
Was any duct tape that was in your home used at a command center that was set up by the family?
Not ours. I know that the Kid Finders Network and George had purchased supplies for the command center, and I know that they did use duct tape to hold up some of the other children's posters and some of Caylee's posters at the command center. But that, I don't believe that came from our house.
All right. Do you recall making a statement that duct tape from your house was used at the command center? Have you ever made a statement?
Stein, rephrase the question.
Have you ever made a statement that duct tape from your house was used at the command center?
If I did, I don't recall it. I could have.
All right. May I show the witness? Do you remember giving a deposition in this case back in July of 2009?
Yes, ma'am.
At that point, you were placed under oath and you answered questions for a period of time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I was present as well as Mr. Baez.
Yes.
All right, if I may show the witness page 511. Actually, on this issue, if we could go to page 570, line 13.
I remember telling you about that episode. Yes.
Okay. What do you recall saying about the duct tape that was in your house?
I remember George telling me about putting a piece of duct tape on the gas can. I never saw him do that, but I remember him telling me that when the gas can came back from the sheriff's department that the little vent cover had been missing and he placed a piece of tape over it.
All right. If I may refer you to 512, line 24. If we can get the question before that as well. Do you recall my asking when you explained about the use of the duct tape that was in the home on the gas can, do you recall my asking where the roll of duct tape was currently at the time of the deposition in July of 2009?
I'd have to look at line 26 to be able to tell you that.
The complete answer, please.
Can I have the, yeah, sorry.
All right, can you give her the whole answer? It spans 2 pages. You might as well go through line 12 on page 513. Through line 12, please. Read that to yourself and tell me if that refreshes your recollection.
I recall that, but again, I recalled using duct tape at the command center, but did not know the origin of the duct tape, if it came from our house. I think I was, I didn't specifically say who got the tape, but I know at some point that they did go and purchase duct tape.
Right. If I may have QS or QT. May I show the witness QT for identification?
You may.
Ma'am, do you recognize anything in QT for identification?
I recognize Caylee's sign, her poster from the Kid Finders Missing, that's children's poster that they made for her.
Okay. Do you know where that poster was?
I'm not sure if it was on the inside of the tent in the middle part or on the one of the outside legs of the tent. That tent was moved so many times that I don't recall. And I wasn't there as often as George was, so I'm not sure if that was in the center post or on the outside post from that picture. I can't tell.
And when you're referring to a tent, are you referring to a tent that was used at the command center?
Yes, in the beginning we had those little pop-up tents that you purchase at the store. And then at one point, Kid Finders had a very large tent donated that had center poles. And that one we used at our last center on Goldenrod up by East Colonial. And I can't tell where this one's taken. I can't tell from this if this is one of those pop-up ones with a large tent.
Do you see an individual in the background?
I see someone, but I don't know who that is.
Right. If I may have QZ for identification, please.
Are you going to be introducing this photo?
At the appropriate time.
Okay. Just to let you know, we have no objections to the introduction of this photo at this time.
All right. Ma'am, do you recognize QZ as something that you've been shown before?
Yes.
Okay. And what do you recognize that to be?
And those are pictures of similar canvas items that we had purchased and had at the home.
All right. Do those pictures on that item accurately reflect items similar to what you had in your home at one time?
The top item, I can't tell the size. It's blurred. I can't see it. The bottom one, it looks like the one that we used in Caylee's room for her stuffed animals by her bed.
All right. Can you testify that you had items similar to both of those items pictured in your home at one time?
The bottom one with the measurements for sure. The top one I don't know because I can't tell the size. I'm not sure how big it is.
I have QZ for identification. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm going to show you QZ and Exhibit 29 from your deposition. Tell me if those are identical.
Yes, they appear to be.
Can you see the size designation of the top item, number 2516?
I can on this one, not this one.
All right, on the one that was attached to your deposition as Exhibit 29, can you
This
read it
one?
on the,
The one with the holes in it?
yes,
Yes.
all right. After reviewing that, does that size that's indicated in that photograph comport with your memory as to the size of an item similar to that one that you had in your home at one time?
Yes, it's similar.
Okay. Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce QZ for identification.
What says the defense?
No objections.
It will be received in evidence. It states numbered.
Permission to publish at this time.
You may publish.
All right, Mrs. Anthony, the item at the top of the screen, would you describe as cylindrical?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have an item like that at your home in 2008 or 2007?
Yes, we did.
Okay, where was it kept?
At one point, we had it in one of the sheds. I remember storing some of Caylee's little plastic balls for a ball pit. And then at some point, I got a laundry bag that had a zipper so the balls wouldn't fall out. And then I put that in the garage up over the laundry area on one of the shelves.
Is that the last place that you saw the item on the top, the cylindrical bag?
Yeah, I hadn't looked for that item or seen that item in a very long time since I used that, and it probably had been maybe 8 or 9 months prior to the summer of 2008.
Now, the item at the bottom of the exhibit, which is labeled 2213, did you have an item such as that at your home in
Yes,
2008?
Yes.
And where was the last place that you saw this item?
We had recently removed it from Caylee's bedroom. We had stored her stuffed animals in it, but then I found a hanging storage thing for stuffed animals where she could actually see them. It was like a tree. And at that time, we moved her stuffed animals to that and then put that in the garage area.
Do you recall, or did you ever make a statement that the last time that you saw item 2213 or the similar item that was in your home, the last time you saw it was in Caylee's bedroom?
Yes, I remember stating that because that's where at the time I thought I had remembered seeing it, but I recalled that the reason why I got the other thing was to put that away, and I had forgotten I had switched it out. Because there's a space between Caylee's bed and the wall where we had kept that. And after a while, when I was going into Caylee's room, I remembered certain things, and I remember taking that one out. there.
All right, so you agree that your memory in July of 2009 was that the last time that you saw this item, 2213, or the similar item in your home, it was in Caylee's bedroom.
I'm sorry, repeat it. I didn't follow you.
Do you recall making a different statement in
Yeah.
July of 2009 about the last place that you saw the item in your home that resembled 2213?
Yes, I recall making that statement that I last had seen it in Caylee's bedroom.
Do you recall, or did you make a statement that after the police had executed the search warrant, you believed that the item was no longer in Caylee's bedroom?
Again, that whole period of time, it was very difficult for me. And at that time, I thought it was still in her bedroom. But as I stated in a previous questioning with you, that my memory has gotten better
Over
of
time?
certain things. Yes, over time.
Okay. Permission to unpublish, Your Honor?
You may.
All right, if I may have 290 in evidence. May I publish, since this is already admitted into evidence, Your Honor?
You may.
The two bags that we were just referring to, the white bags that you kept stuffed animals in at one point, and then those plastic balls that you made reference to, were they stored, were either one of them stored in this location in the garage?
Yes.
Can you circle and let the members of the jury know where they were? Okay. What is that they are being stored inside of?
We would put anything that would collect dust, something that we couldn't wipe off, like fabric, or we had like the cat carrier and dog carriers up there. We would store the items in a trash bag.
Okay. If I may have 291 and permission to publish that one as well, Your Honor.
You may.
Ma'am, do you recognize the close-up of that portion of the garage in 291 in evidence?
Yes.
Okay. Is the type of container that you would have those white bags in consistent with the container shown, the black plastic bags in 291?
Yes, it would be in either one of them. I wouldn't know which one it would have been in.
After the execution of the search warrant on December 11th of 2008, did you see either one of those items again?
No.
If I may have 281 in evidence and permission to publish that as well.
You may.
Do you see the item that you were referring to that used to be kept in the cylindrical
Yes.
bag?
Yes.
Can you circle that and point it out for the jury? Okay, what is inside of that?
Little plastic balls that you'd find in a ball pit.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
I show the witness 13 in evidence.
You may.
Mrs. Anthony, do you recognize 13 in evidence to be a photograph of your daughter and granddaughter?
Yes.
Okay. The shirt, and if we could zoom in on Caylee, please. Do you recognize the shirt that Caylee is wearing?
The first time I had ever seen that shirt was during my deposition.
Your Honor, may I publish?
You may.
Did you do the laundry at the home?
Yes. Most of the time, George and Casey did it once in a while too.
Would it be fair to say that you've never seen that shirt at your house?
I don't ever remember seeing that shirt.
And you never saw the picture of Caylee in the shirt until July of 2009?
No.
Thank you, Mrs. Anthony. I don't have any other questions of the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, be a good time to take our mid-afternoon recess. We'll be in recess to 3 o'clock. Members of the jury, please do not discuss this case among yourselves. And please remember all of my previous admonitions. We have a question from the jury. Can we see Exhibit 313? We did not see it after it was introduced. I think 313 may have been that heart-shaped item. You may want to take out the overhead document.
No.
They asked for Exhibit 313. The other question, I can't answer them now. It has to do with deliberations. They want to know during deliberations, will we get a type list of all the exhibits? So what they want is an exhibit list which we can provide them.
Did you say which we cannot provide to them?
I say which we can.
Okay.
So how do y'all want to handle the request to see 313?
I don't have any objection if they want to pass it around. I don't have gloves available for them at this juncture.
Well, they asked specifically for Exhibit 313. So pull out the document camera and put it on that so they can see it. Once they see that, then you can begin your cross-examination of Ms. Anthony. Will we have, Madam Clerk, make sure we have enough gloves to send back into the jury room? More than 12 pair, because they will probably discard them and use them, so they need a box.
It's in a form that it can just be passed to them.
Problem I have, Judge, is that
Yes, sir.
is through the handling of the evidence, the sticker has now fallen off of the cardboard, and it was stuck to the cardboard, and I'd like it to be shown in the condition of which it was when it was collected, which I think would be the fair and more accurate representation of the actual item.
State comments?
The evidence is in the condition, as I understand it, that it was, there's no testimony that it was stuck to that cardboard. It was photographed on a piece of cardboard. If Mr. Baez wishes to call the witness back who collected the item, we have no objection to that person clarifying at some point in time whether or not this was actually stuck to the item that it's with. But there is a photograph that was taken. I have no objection to that, since I believe that may not be in evidence, but obviously at the appropriate time, I have no objection to them reviewing that.
Be the better solution.
But this is not in evidence yet.
We can stipulate to that, this item being in evidence. I don't have an issue with that.
There's specific case law that provides that when a jury asks a specific question, you answer that question. What they specifically asked for, can we see Exhibit 313? We did not see it after it was introduced. Now, if y'all want to introduce something else and show it to them subsequent to that, then that's fine. But they will see 313. That's what they asked for.
I think we're going to reach a mutual agreement here, Judge.
Do you want it on the document camera?
Well, you know what? Put it on the document camera, and if they want to see it on their hands, they can see it on their hands. Later on, you can pass it to them, but that wasn't what they asked.
I would ask if it comes to the point where they're requesting that it be handed to them, that we have an instruction that at the time of collection, it was stuck to a piece of cardboard.
Is there record testimony that it was stuck to a piece of cardboard?
I believe that in the collection of this, it does say heart-shaped sticker stuck to a piece of cardboard.
Is there record testimony that says that?
Yeah, well,
I believe that the record testimony is that it's a piece of cardboard material,
Okay.
and then there's a symbol for what is with pink raised heart-shaped material attached.
Okay. Who is the witness that predicated the exhibit?
Robin Maynard.
Okay. Did
That
you?
was last Saturday.
Okay. When we take a break, we will have Ms. Peters, who covered that day, pull her testimony and see what the record says.
Document camera is,
Let's see. You got to turn it on.
well,
Okay, you got it on now.
the light.
Okay.
It's a reflection.
Why don't we do this? Let's bring the jury in. We can let them see it on the document camera, and then I can inquire as to whether or not they want to pass it among themselves to take a look at it. Okay?
Sir?
and will we be having argument outside of the presence of the jury? or-
Argument about what?
Well, the problem is, Judge, is that we have an item of evidence that is altered as it is being shown to the jury that was not, that is not how it was when it was collected. So I think in fairness, they must be made aware that this item was stuck to this piece of cardboard. They wouldn't have included the cardboard if it wasn't stuck to it. I mean,
That may be true, Mr. Baez. Just a second. Let's go off the record. Call Ms. Peters up, ask her to pull up that testimony and find it. And then we'll see whether or not it was testified to that, because if it was no testimony, then all we have are assumptions. So we'll go off the record now. Okay, folks, this is what I'm proposing to do. I would tell them that we would get that exhibit and give them opportunity to look at it, but we will continue with the cross-examination of Ms. Anthony, okay? By that time, we should have an answer to Mr. Baez's question. Is that acceptable to both sides?
Available?
Yeah, just leave it out there just in case. All right. Let's return, let's have Ms. Anthony back on the witness stand. All right, let's return the jury. All right, state recognized presence of jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense.
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay, Mr. Baez, you may proceed with your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. Good afternoon, Mrs. Anthony. I want to try and take things back into perspective, if I can. Your granddaughter, Caylee, was found on December 11, 2008, correct?
Yes.
And on December 11th, 2008, the police executed a search warrant of your home.
Yes, I found out after that, yes.
And you weren't home.
No.
In fact, you didn't go home for a couple days later.
We went home the next day to gather our dogs.
But it was a couple days before you actually went back to the house, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And after that, you were home for a few days and you got to see what the police had done in your absence.
Yes.
Okay. And then on December 20th, the police came back and executed a second search warrant of your home.
Yes.
Okay. And during that second execution of the search warrant, well, actually, let me backtrack for a moment. When you got home, you saw a copy of the search warrant there and the items that they had confiscated from your home, correct?
No.
Okay. Did they give them to your attorney at the time?
I'm not sure at what point we got them. It took us a while to get the copy of the items.
Okay. And the 20th, when the police arrived at your home, it was a difficult time for you.
Absolutely.
And the rest of your family as well.
Yes.
And there was somewhat of a confrontation when the police arrived. Isn't that correct?
Relevancy?
It relates to the items listed. It relates to the issues raised during direct examination. I can tie it in fairly quickly, Judge.
Overall, for now.
fair to say it was somewhat of a confrontational moment.
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, George had to be taken to the back area, correct?
Objection, irrelevant, outside the scope of direct.
I'm going to tie it in within a matter of 3 questions, Judge.
Sustain this to the last question. Next question.
Mrs. Anthony, at that point, did you tell law enforcement that that's when you told them there was a missing blanket?
I don't know when I told him about a blanket.
Okay. Are you aware that that's a statement you made to them at that time on December 20th?
Not until you're telling me right now.
Okay. Are you aware that on the search warrant of December 11th, there was mentioning on the actual warrant for Winnie the Pooh blankets?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. He's asking questions based on items not in evidence.
These are direct lines of questionings by Ms. Drain Burdick.
Approach. You may proceed.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Anthony, when you came back home a couple days after December 11th of 2008, your house was a mess.
Yes.
And the police had basically turned the house upside down.
Yes.
And they didn't put anything back.
No.
And they took items, did they not?
Yes.
And included in the items was Caylee's bedding set, correct?
Yes, at some point her bedding set was taken.
Okay. So you were aware when you came back that they were interested in her bedding material?
I wasn't sure what they were interested in. They opened just about every drawer and looked under every little thing.
Okay. Now, can I have page 570? Ms. Drain Burdick may I publish this to the witness, Judge? States it's 570.
That's deposition.
Yes, this is testimony that she was shown during her direct examination. I want to ask her some questions about it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Can you see that, Mrs. Anthony?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like for you to read for a moment lines 10 through 15.
Yes.
And during direct examination, when you were asked along this lines of questioning, what exactly was the question asked to you during this?
I'm going to object. It's the lawyer who has to ask the question. This is improper. There's no impeachment going on with this question and answer.
I'm not impeaching her. I'm asking her questions that she was asked during direct examination. She was shown this item and discussed it.
The page that he's referring to is hearsay, and we would object on that basis
The page
from the deposition.
hearsay in terms of who was the person who was being questioned.
Right? It's an out-of-court statement. If he wants to ask her it independent of it rather than reading from a hearsay document, that's one thing, but it would have to be impeaching information.
He can ask the form of the question and the leading question, so you can read the question and give an answer. You're on cross-examination. Go ahead.
10 through 15. Mrs. Anthony, were you asked by Ms. Drain Burdick if Caylee removed any duct tape from the house when she was out of jail for the period of time, the 2 periods of time? Or you asked that question?
I don't remember, but if it's in my deposition, then I must have been asked that question.
Does that refresh your recollection that you were asked that question? Do you see that there?
No, I don't remember talking about, I don't remember them asking me if Caylee removed any duct tape, but if it's in there, then I had a 2-day deposition, so I don't remember every single thing that she asked me.
I understand, it's a couple years later, but did you respond, as far as I remember, no, because I think we only had 1 roll of duct tape.
Proper impeachment, the witness said she did not remember. If he wanted to try to refresh her recollection, but at this juncture, she says she does not remember the question. So I object to counsel reading it. It's improper impeachment.
Mr. Baez?
This testimony was elicited by, we're in a little bit of a unique situation because Ms. Dream Burdick had questioned her about this.
Established the predicate for past recollection recorded.
Sure. If I can have just a moment, Judge. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Do you recall giving a deposition in this case, ma'am?
Yes.
And if you could look at the front, the first page to give the date, and the first, hold on, yeah, the very front.
July 29th, 2009.
Okay, and were you placed under oath at that time?
Yes.
Okay, and can you read that 10 through 15, lines 10 through 15?
10 is question, okay, did Caylee remove any duct tape from the house when she was out of jail?
Wait, slow down. She can't hear you, Miss.
Okay.
And you take your time.
Question was, okay, did Caylee remove any duct tape from the house when she was out of jail for that period of time, the 2 periods of time?
Can you give the answer?
As far as I remember, no, because I think we only had 1 roll of duct tape and George was using that.
So it was your understanding when you took the deposition that you only had 1 roll of duct tape, correct?
Yes, during that time period when Caylee was out of jail, we had a black roll of duct tape and we were using it all the time to repair our signs that the protesters would knock down in front of our house.
Okay.
So yes.
And your understanding was that the only one using that 1 roll of duct tape was George?
Well, I would be using it too for those signs.
The answer you gave in the deposition was that the only person using that 1 roll of duct tape was George Anthony, correct?
Probably. Again, it's the context of the questioning.
I understand, ma'am. Now, I'd like to talk about the photograph. Good. May I show the witness, Your Honor, states evidence 314 and publish for the jury as well?
You may.
Can you see that photograph, Mrs. Anthony?
Yes.
Can the ladies and gentlemen of the jury see the photograph? Okay. Prior to me getting into the photograph, Mrs. Anthony, I'd like to ask you, how long have you owned the Pontiac Sunfire?
I think since 2000.
Okay. So you had owned it for 8 years in total, correct? prior to it being confiscated in this case?
Yes.
And your hair length has changed numerous times throughout that time period.
Yes.
And so has that of Casey.
Yes.
And so has that of Caylee.
Yes.
And I know we touched on your mother as well, having access to the car, but I presume her hair has changed as well.
Her length hasn't ever gone past her shoulders.
Okay. And how many inches would you say the length of her hair was?
The longest, maybe just right to here.
Okay. Can you give us a guesstimate?
5 inches?
Okay. And Lee's hair has also varied in length, correct?
Yes, his hair is usually very short.
Okay. Now, turning your focus to the photograph, this photograph was taken in early 2007, correct?
Yes.
And Caylee would have been, at that time, younger than 2 years old?
Yes.
Okay. Approximately 15 months, would you say?
I would say maybe 18 months.
Okay. And the shorts are 24,
Correct.
correct? And in June 16th of 2008, a year and 3 months later, Caylee has grown significantly, has she not?
Yes.
In fact, Caylee no longer fit into these shorts, did she?
I don't believe so.
Okay. She had outgrown these shorts.
She was in 3Ts.
Okay. And these are 24 months, correct?
I think so.
So would it be a fair statement to make that whoever put these shorts on her were not familiar with her size?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to asking the witness to speculate.
Sustain.
But as you testified under direct examination, ma'am, that, oh, never mind, I'll withdraw the question. Thank you, Mrs. Anthony.
Redirect.
Mrs. Anthony, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Anthony. You may stand down. Okay, members of the jury, you had asked earlier to have an opportunity to see Exhibit 313. We can publish it via the document camera, and we can also pass it around for you to look at. Would you like one or both of those methods? Okay, so we will publish it on the document camera. Please read the writing contained on the exhibit so the jury would understand when this item was originally taken into custody, how the exhibit currently was brought into custody.
Exhibit 313 is identified as a piece of cardboard matting with pink raised heart-shaped material attached.
You will also notice now that it has separated. Okay, please let us know when you're finishing it. We will pass it around. Ready? Okay, please pass it around.
That as evaluating the evidence, they should consider it attached.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when item was taken into evidence, it was one complete. The heart was attached to the cardboard liner. State may call in next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, after consultation with the defense, there were several stipulations.
We need your microphone on the front. The court reporter hear you.
After consultation with the defense, there are several stipulations that we'd like to announce at this time, if I may approach
You may.
with those. And there are two exhibits that go with this first item, QT and QI. No. I'm sorry, QT and RA.
What says the defense as to this stipulation?
We have no objections to that, to those two items. And may I stand, since we're doing the stipulations?
Yes. Okay. You want me to read them?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
not only the stipulation, but there is an affidavit as it relates to one of the items, actually to both of the items, QT and RA.
You want the affidavit, and do you also want the notice of intent to rely upon the affidavit of professional journalists?
Yes.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the following stipulation between the state of Florida and the defendant. The copies of the video and still photographs from the video taken by WF-TV on July 20th, 2008 are true and accurate representations of the business records of WF-TV Television Incorporated. The parties have agreed to this fact, and it should be considered as true in your deliberations, bearing the signature of Ms. Drain Burdick, Mr. Baez, and Ms. Anthony. Second document is notice of intent to rely upon affidavit of professional journalists. This document serves as notice to the above listed defendant that the state of Florida intends to introduce the document described in the attached affidavit of a professional journalist into evidence at a hearing or trial of this matter pursuant to section 90.803 paren 6, 90.5015 paren 6, and 90.902 paren 11 Florida statute. The document described in the attached affidavit of the professional journalist, WF-TV Television Incorporated, were previously provided to the defendant's counsel as discovery. Signed by Ms. Linda Drain Burdick. Affidavit of professional journalists. I, Daniel Criswell, am a professional journalist currently employed with WF-TV Television Incorporated. Attached hereto are true and correct copies of videos or photographs produced by my company on July 20th, 2008 at the temporary Caylee Anthony Search Command Post manned by Lee Anthony in the parking lot of the public supermarket on Chickasaw and Lake Underhill, which I have personal knowledge. The attached video recording or photograph is a true and accurate copy of the original and truly and accurately reflects the observation and facts contained therein, bearing the signature of the affiant under oath. I will now file a stipulation with the clerk.
At this point, we would seek to introduce QT and RA for identification into evidence as the state's next numbered exhibits.
And that's the exhibit that the affidavit is referring to.
Correct. One is a photograph and the other is a very brief video.
What says the defense?
No objection.
It will be received in evidence as states number.
May we publish 317 first, followed by 316?
You may. Did you see it?
Have Mr. Perez zoom in on the area inside the red.
And that's exhibit what?
It pixelated. That would have been 316.
Okay.
Permission to unpublish?
Have you had an opportunity to review it, members of the jury? You may unpublish.
We have several additional stipulations.
Remember, she cannot hear you without the microphone.
We have several additional stipulations for the court at this juncture.
Okay?
First, stipulation to the clerk. This will probably need an identification number because there are documents.
Okay?
And when this stipulation is accepted, we would move RV for identification into evidence as the next numbered exhibit.
What says the defense as to the stipulation?
No objections, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the following stipulation has been entered into between the state and the defense. In 2008, Cindy Anthony was employed by Gentiva Health Services. The attached documents are true and accurate copies of the business records of Gentiva Health Services regarding Cindy Anthony's employment from January 1st, 2008 through July 16, 2008. The parties have agreed to this fact, and it should be considered as true in your deliberations. Signed by Linda Drain Burdick, Jose Baez, and Miss Anthony, the defendant. The second portion is a business record certificate. And then the third portion, which I will not read the entire thing, but it is a time card history report. Any objections based upon the stipulation? Any additional objections?
None from the defense, Your Honor.
It will be received in evidence as, okay?
There's an additional stipulation which we've asked the clerk to label as RW.
It's RC.
Oh, I thought the first one was RB. RB, RC. RC.
Okay, as this stipulation is, I will read it and then ask the defense, is this stipulation acceptable? In 2008, George Anthony was employed by Security Forces Incorporated. The attached documents are true and accurate copies of the business records of Security Forces Incorporated regarding George Anthony's employment from January 16, 2008 through July 4, 2008. The parties have agreed to this fact, and it should be considered as true in your deliberations, bearing the signatures of Linda Drain Burdick, Assistant State Attorney, Mr. Jose Baez, counsel for Ms. Caylee Anthony, and bearing the signature of Ms. Anthony, business record certificate, and then the weekly time reports of Mr. Anthony. States offering this in evidence.
We are, Your Honor.
Any objections by the defense?
No objections by the defense.
It will be received in evidence as. Okay. Now, do you wish to publish any of those two exhibits by the use of the document camera? Or are you just gonna?
Not at this time. They can,
Okay.
They can go to the jury during deliberations. We have an additional stipulation that I would present to the clerk that has multiple documents attached to it.
Okay, stipulation regarding State's Exhibit RD. R as in Ron, D as in dog. Okay, let's approach.
There are two additional stipulations.
Okay, let's finish this one here. We haven't finished this one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. With those modifications, what says the defense as to what's the identification number, Madam Clerk? RD.
No objections.
Okay, RD will be received in evidence as states numbered. I will read the stipulation into evidence. The attached documents are true and accurate records of the business records from Photo Bucket relating to photographs from May 24th, 2007 through July 16th, 2008. The parties have agreed to this fact, and it should be considered as true in your deliberations. All right, you may continue.
And the two final stipulations have no documents attached, if I could just approach the clerk.
The first stipulation, Mr. Baez, deals with identity.
Yes, sir. We have no objections to that one.
The following is a stipulation between the state of Florida and the defendant. The remains found on Suburban Drive on December 11th, 2008 were identified as the remains of Caylee Marie Anthony. The parties have agreed to this fact, and it should be considered as true in your deliberations, bearing the signatures of Linda Drain Burdick, Jose Baez, attorney for Caylee Marie Anthony, and Ms. Caylee Marie Anthony's signature. The second stipulation deals with the identity of the defendant.
Yes, sir. We have no objections to the identity of Ms. Anthony.
Stipulation between the state of Florida and the defendant. It is agreed that at all times during the trial, all witnesses who referred to Caylee Anthony were referring to the defendant in court. The parties have agreed to this fact, and it should be considered as true in your deliberations. Stipulation bearing the signature of Linda Drain Burdick, Jose Baez, attorney for Caylee Marie Anthony, and the signature of Caylee Marie Anthony. State may call their next witness.
Thank you, Judge. The state would call Jenny Welch.